My name is Ankit Jain. I welcome you all to my channel Tech Journey with Ankit. In this video, we will explore another OAuth 2.0 flow, that is the PKCE flow, which is also known as the proof key for the code exchange. In this video, we'll try to understand what benefits that the PKCE flow offers over the other OAuth flows that we have discussed as of now. We'll try to understand the step-by-step approach, how to use the PKCE approach, and we'll also try to figure it out in a practical way how to use this flow as well. In case you folks like to have one-to-one connect with me, you can scan the QR code and connect with me on the top mat. Once you navigate to the top mat, there are two options which are available. You can either have one-to-one connect with me to solve your Salesforce queries, or you can also explore the digital products that I am offering, like the LWC notes and the code, moreover the interview guide, data cloud notes, as well as the admin notes as well. All these guides are very highly ranked on this top mat, so I do recommend you folks to check that out. Moreover, very recently I have published my Udemy course as well. This Udemy course talks about how you can use all the admin and the development skills by implementing a project. So in this Udemy course, I am actually building one complete application from a very much scratch to an actual application, which is like we do in the real world. So I try to replicate the kind of a best practices, data modeling practices, frameworks that we used in the enterprise, how we can use the same thing in this project as well. I hope you also found this project helpful as well. Now coming back to the content for today. Today we will be exploring the PKCE flow, what are the different steps of the Pixie flow, then the use case, benefits, few MCQs that I want you guys to go over, and finally I will show you the demo as well. Now let's try to understand first what is Pixie flow, why we do have the need of the Pixie flow. So again, there are few key terms that I will be highlighting again and again, like I do in all my other videos. So the Pixie flow, it is also referred as the Pixie because very commonly you will hear if you go over the documentation or listening any audios that they call generally Pixie. So it's the same thing. The actual name here is the PKCE, proof key for the code exchange, right? And it's a extension. It's not a complete flow. It's a security extension to the OAuth authorization code flow. In my previous video, we have already discussed what is 2.0 authorization code flow. On the top of the 2.0 authorization code flow, if you want to add the additional security extension, then the PKCE flow is helpful. It is typically recommended wherever you have to store the sensitive secret and you don't have the server. For example, your mobile application or the browser-based application where you don't want to store the secret key, but you want to use the authorization code flow. In such scenarios, the PKCE flow is quite of an ideal flow that is recommended by the industry. Again, if in my previous video we already talked about another flow, that is the implicit grant flow. We discussed that the implicit grant flow is something which is not recommended and secured. So to overcome that, again the PKCE flow is used. So just to summarize, PKCE flow is the security extension of the authorization code flow, right? It is used where you cannot go and store the secret key. Moreover, it is recommended over the implicit grant flow as well. Now, whenever you worked on the PKCE flow, there are two terms that you hear very frequently. One is the code verifier and second one here is the code challenge. What is this? These are the one-time parameter. One-time parameter means, again, these are something which are unique. Every time you are requesting the authorization code flow, you will be using these one-time parameters along with your authorization request. Why we are using this? To make sure that the authorization server, which is authorizing the code request and the token and the subsequent token request, they are kind of a same entity. So again, it is to add the additional security layer, we use the code verifier and the code challenge to make sure that the authorization server, that the authorization code request and the subsequent token request, both of them are made by the same entity. To make sure the entity is same, who is initiating the authorization request and the token request, we use these parameters. Now let's go and try to deep dive what is these parameters one by one. So the first parameter that we do have, it is the code verifier. You can also take that as a more like a secret key of the application. So the client application basically generates and securely stores the code verifier. It's a random string. You can give any string. I will show you in my demo as well, right? But the key part here is it is something which is secret to your application, right? And client must be able to generate and secure to store this value. This is the minimum prerequisite that the client should have. They should be able to generate that secret key and store that secret key. Now, once the secret key has been generated, then the client should go and again generate the code challenge based on the secret key that has been generated. So on the top of the code verifier, the client will apply the algorithm SHA-256 algorithm and then the Ben64 encoding to go and generate the code challenge. So these are the two things that the client should have, where the code verifier is the kind of a secret key. Code challenge, it is more like a public key. Public key means this is the key that can be used for while sharing the request. Now let's go and try to understand the PKCE flow step by step. So very first step that we do under the PKCE flow, it always begins where the client application will send the authorization code request, right, to the authorization server. And in the authorization code request, they go and include the three things. First is the client ID. Second one here is the redirect URI. And the third one here is the code challenge. Code challenge, just now we discussed. Client ID, this is something we already discussed in our past session. And the redirect URI we also discussed. It is more like a callback URL. What will happen when the authorization server go and send this key? The authorization server also stored the code challenge to check that later. Okay, so authorization server, sorry, client application will go and send a request to the authorization server, right, including the client ID, redirect URI, and the code challenge. Authorization server will take the additional step and take and store the code challenge here. Now coming to the user authentication part, the authorization server will redirect the request to the user so that user can log in and provide the approval to the scope. We have discussed that in the past. The consent is something that needs to be provided. Once the user have provided the consent, basically authorization server redirect the browser back to the client redirect URI. Whatever the redirect URI that has been specified in the request, authorization server will redirect the client back to the redirect URI. And here the authorization is giving the one very important thing, that is the authorization code. Now, once the authorization code is with you, then the next thing that will happen here is the client application will initiate the HTTP post request. This time we have to send the post request to the token endpoint. Okay, this time we have to send the post request to the token endpoint. So the first request we have sent to the authorization server. As a part of first request, we got the authorization code. Now we have started sending the second request. In the second request, we are sending the request to the token endpoint, and this time we are sending the authorization code, the code that we have received in the previous step. Client ID, what is the redirect URI that we do have, we'll be sending the redirect URI, and more importantly, this time we'll also be sending the code verifier. This time we'll also be sending the code verifier. Now the verification process will start. What the authorization server will do, authorization server will validate the request parameter and then perform the PKCE check as well. What it will do as a part of PKCE check, it hashes the received code verifier. So very first thing, it perform the hashing on the code verifier and then compare the resulted hash value with the code challenge. At this step, the code challenge, it was already stored by the authorization server. Now here they are making the comparison between the code verifier and the code challenge that has been submitted on the part of previous request. In case everything goes good, your code verifier and the code challenge has been matched, then the authorization server will confirm the identity and issue the access token. And if the refresh token is requested, then the refresh token will also be issued. The flow is very simple. First time you will be sending the request to the authorization server along with the code challenge. Authorization server will store that code challenge. If the user consent is required to finalize the scope, the user consent has been taken. Then the authorization server will receive the send the authorization code. Now the access token request will be sent. This time we'll be sending the HTTP post request along with the authorization code, client ID, matching URL, and we'll also be sending the code verifier. Now the additional step which is making more secure that the PKCE check will happen. It will take the code verifier that you are sending and it already has stored the code challenge. It will go and compare both of them. If everything goes good, then it will issue the access token followed by the refresh token. I hope you folks got the understanding about the PKCE flow. Now there are a few MCQs that I want you folks to definitely attempt and let me know the answers in the comment section. First MCQ here is which parameter must the client application generate and include in the authorization request for the PKCE flow. Just now I have mentioned that whenever the authorization server is sending the request for the initial authorization, they have to go and send one additional thing. So you guys have to let me know in the comment section what is that additional thing that needs to be sent for your initial authorization request. Next one here is during the token exchange step of the PKCE flow, which parameter client needs to send to the Salesforce token endpoint, right? So when you are sending, now here I'm talking about the second request that you are sending. While sending the second request, what additional thing that you have to send to the token endpoint out of these four, whether you will be sending the code verifier, code challenge, client secret, or the user password. Third one here is why PKCE flow should be enabled for the mobile and the browser based Salesforce app. In what scenario as an architect or a developer you will take the decision that I will go for the PKCE flow, right? So again, these are the four options which are available. Pause the video, go over those options, and please let me know your solution in the comment section. Now we'll go and see how we can use the PKCE flow to perform the end-to-end operation, and for that I will be first creating the connected app on my org. So to create the connected app, I'm taking here to the app manager and creating the new external client app. What is external client app? We already discussed. So here I am putting the authorization code flow with PKCE. You can give any name. After that, I am putting my email address. Followed by that, I am enabling the auth, right? And callback URL, you can put any callback URL. I am putting this one as the callback URL. Let me go and copy this callback URL for now. Okay. Callback URL can be anything, but this is something that is recommended. I will put this callback URL in the video description as well, right? Let me go and get the OAuth scopes. So here I am putting the API. At this moment, I am giving the full access, manage user data. And if I scroll down, I also want to have the refresh token. If I further scroll down, yeah, I believe this is enough for now, right? Anyway, we are giving the full access, so does not matter. But let me also give the identity access as well, right? And now for the OAuth flow, what you have to do, you have to go and enable the authorization code flow. This is something which is required whenever you are requesting for the OAuth flow. You have to go and enable the authorization code and the credential flow. And under the security, you have to make sure that the PKCE option is checked. Now let me go here and click on create. As soon as you do this, what the Salesforce will do, Salesforce will go and generate the client ID and the client secret key. Let's go and try to access those client ID and the client secret key now. So I'm taking you to the settings, and under the OAuth, here I do have an option to access the client ID and the client secret. Let me go and get the code. Right? So these are the output that we will be getting as a part of our external client tab. You can see the client ID and the client secret has been generated. So this is the very first step that you will do. Make sure that the PKCE checkbox is checked. Now we have to make sure that we do have all those things before we go for the further step. We should have the domain name, callback URL, client ID, client secret key, all those details should be with you before you go and perform the operation. So let me go and start collecting all those things. What I can do here is, let me go and use this. So here I am putting the my domain. Okay. Again, it's not mandatory that you have to do this. This is something that I generally follow, right? So at one place, I should have all the information. You can go and get the my domain from the setup my domain as well, or you can also follow me to take the my domain from the URL itself, right? This is my domain URL. What is the next thing that my system is demanding? That is the callback URL. So my callback URL is this. So let me go and put up here the callback URL. What is the next thing that I want? Here is the client ID and the client secret. I already generated the client ID. So this is my client ID and this is my client secret. Right? What is the next thing that I want now? Here is the code verifier and the code secret. Again, you can write down your own logic to generate the code verifier and the code secret. For the time being, I am using the online utility with the help of which I will get the code verifier and the code secret. But if you are building this in your programming language, for example in Apex, then you have to definitely write down the logics to generate the code verifier and the code secret. So let's say here I want to say that my code verifier here is the take journey with Ankit. You can give any name, it's completely up to you, right? So this is my code verifier, right? And for this code verifier, now I am generating the code challenge. So this is the code challenge that I have generated. And now I will go and use this in my PKCE flow. So I do have all the details that I want before I go and start working on my request. So to how to prepare the URL for that, again, I am taking you to the PKCE Salesforce documentation. So that we do have the URL and all those things that needs to be sent whenever we are working on the PKCE flow. As I said, it's an extension, right? So very first thing what you have to do if you have to work on the PKCE flow, this is not the full documentation. Let me go back and here I am putting, let me look for the authorization code flow of the Salesforce, because this is nothing but an extension, right? So we can go and use the authorization code flow, which is also referred as the web server flow, right? So this is how we have to go and send the request. So here I am preparing my request. Okay. So what I am doing here is I don't want to use the my domain and all those stuff. So here I will be putting the my domain. So let me go and now change this from my domain to this URL, copying and pasting it here, right? Followed by the slash services OAuth to authorized client ID. That's the reason I took everything at one place so that I don't have to look for the details again and again at the different places. So here I am putting my client ID, right? After that, I do have my redirect URI. My redirect URI is this. So this is my redirect URI. And lastly, I do have my response type as code, right? But we have to also send the PKC thing as well. So to send the PKC additional attribute that needs to be passed, here is the code challenge. So here I will be appending the code challenge as well. So putting the ampersand and code challenge is equal to, this is the code challenge that I want to use. So here I am copying this code challenge and putting it here, right? So this is how we are making sure that we are using the PKCE flow by adding the code challenge. After that, I'll make sure that everything is coming up as a part of one single URL. So let me go and take out all those additional spaces. Right now, everything is coming up as a part of one URL only. Okay, looks good. Now my URL is ready. I'm copying this URL, going here and pasting it in the browser. What we are expecting, again, the flow here is before I go to the and execute it. So this is how we have prepared our authorization URL. We have added the code challenge, client ID, redirect URI, and all those stuff, right? The system will ask for the consent here. So let's go and check. If I go and enter the URL, the system is asking me for the consent. Here you can see, like here we do have the system is asking me for the consent. And if you see the flow is same, the kind of a flow that I walk you through here, right? Sorry, here we are sending the authorization request. Now the user authentication part has been done, and what we will get in return from the authorization server, the expectation here is we should get the authorization code. So let me click on the allow, and here you can see what we do have here is the authorization code. So I'm just want to show you. You can see what we are having from the system is this authorization code now. So this is how my request is flowing. Now we have to go and send the request to the access token endpoint. So again, I'm taking you to the documentation. So this is how we are sending the request. We got the code, right? The code that we are getting, it is valid only for the 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, this code will expire. Moreover, the code that we do have, this code is available in the URL encoded form, right? This code. So what I need to do, I need to go and decode the code. So how to decode the code is another utility which is available on the web, using which you can go and decode the code. So here I will be pasting my encoded code uh, and click on the decode button, right? So this is how my decoded code will look like. Okay, now with all those details, we have to send the request to the token endpoint, and for that I will be taking the help of the postman. So let me take you to the postman. I'll be looking for the auth space that we have created, and this time I will be creating the third flow, blank collection, and I'm naming that collection here as the authorization with Pixie. Okay, and in this I will be adding the request. My request will be the post request. I need to send that request to the which endpoint. Let's follow the documentation one more time. I have to send the request to the token endpoint. Here you can see, right? So to this endpoint, the request needs to be sent. But before I go and do that, I have to also go and put my domain as well. So where is my domain? Copying it and pasting it here. Right, to this particular endpoint, we have to go and send the request. My domain followed by the endpoint that they have put up in the documentation. After that, coming up to the uh, body part, again this request that we have to send, if you again follow the documentation, they have mentioned that the request must be of type URL encoded form, right? Again, in the postman, the way we do this by setting up the URL form encoded, and now we have to go and pass the different keys that we have to go and send in the form of request. So what all different things that they are asking? First one here is the grant type. So here I'll be putting the grant type, and the value here is the authorization code as per the documentation, right? Second thing here is the code that they want me to send. So code we already have decoded form. So whatever the code that you have decoded, you have to copy that code and paste it here. Next thing here is, again, if we follow the documentation, what they are asking here is the client ID, and followed by that the client secret. So coming up here, client ID. I already have my client ID with me. This is my client ID, so I'm pasting it here, right? Next thing here is the client secret. So coming here, putting the client secret. This is my client secret, pasting it here. Next thing here is the redirect URI. Sorry, redirect URI, and my redirect URI that I already copied and pasted is this one, right? And the last thing, because we are using the Pixie flow here, in the Pixie flow, what we have to send as a part of last thing here is the code verifier. So this is where I need to send what is the code verifier so that my authorization server can validate the authorization request. So code verifier, and the code verifier that I have used in this project is with the name of Take Journey with Ankit. So here I am copying it and pasting it as well. Right, so this is how we are sending the request. I believe my request have everything that needs to be sent, right? So we have already decoded the code. This is a very important step that we miss most of the times, but let's go and click on the send button. If everything goes well, we should get the access token from the system. So the response code is 200, and here you can see with this Pixie code, what we are getting now here is the access token. So now we can use this access token and send the request. So let's go and try this out as well. So clicking on the plus button. So here I will be sending the request to the limits API. So you can use anything. Okay. Here I'll be sending the request to the limits API. So let's go and get that limits API of the Salesforce, with the help of which we can validate the Salesforce governor limit. Okay, so this is how we have to go and send the request. So again, I'm copying this, pasting it here. But before that, I need to make sure that I'm having my domain before using the request. So copying the my domain part, and my request is ready, right? Again, I'm just giving the version number here. You can give any valid version number. Here I am giving the version number as 63.0, right? And now the authorization, I am taking it from my access token. So this is the access token that I do have. And with this access token, I will be sending the request. So here I'll be using the bearer token. Why bearer? Again, if you follow the documentation, here you can see they expect the bearer token. What is bearer token? We already discussed in our previous videos. And here I am simply pasting the token that now has been generated. And here I go and click on the send button. So this is how we are getting all the details from the Salesforce. So this is the kind of a practical implementation, how we can use the Pixie flow to validate or to add the additional level of security for our OAuth flow. And we have also seen this in practice, how you can go and implement this as well. I do recommend you folks, please practice this out. Kind of a very important concept in enterprise. We use this Pixie flow very heavily as well. For the time being, thank you. Have a good time.